Hi, in this video, I'm going to be going over the entire activity for European invasion. I'm going to be reviewing these first two poems and the questions. If you were absent from class today, you'll want to watch that part. The second half, I'll be reviewing Chief Seattle's prayer. This is what your homework is. So if you only need the homework section, you can fast forward to this part now. I'm going to read these two poems and then we'll discuss some questions regarding them. The beginning of sickness. Then they adhered to their reason. There was no sin in the holy faith their lives passed. There was then no sickness. They had then no aching bones. They had then no high fever. They had then no smallpox. They had then no burning chest. They had then no abdominal pains. They had then no consumption. They had then no headache. At the time, the course of humanity was orderly. The foreigners made it otherwise when they arrived here. They brought shameful things when they came to this. There was the cause of our sickness also. There was no more lucky days for us. We had no sound judgment. At the end of our loss of vision and our shame, everything shall be revealed. The second poem. The Europeans arrive. They came from the east when they arrived. Then Christianity also began. The fulfillment of its prophecy is ascribed to the east. Then with true God, the true Dios, came the beginning of our misery. It was the beginning of tribute, the beginning of church dues, the beginning of strife with purse snatching, the beginning of strife with blowguns, the beginning of strife by trampling on people, the beginning of robbery with violence, the beginning of forced debt, the beginning of debts enforced by false testimony, the beginning of individual strife, a beginning of vexation. Using these two poems, you should answer the questions below. Who is the they in the beginning of poem 1? Right here, where it's saying they had no aching bones, they had no high fever, no smallpox. Who is this they that is referred to in this poem? Who is they in the second poem? So looking here, who is this? Who is the they that came from the east and brought Christianity? Who is they? Question 3. According to both poems, how did the Europeans justify their reasoning for their journey, and what were they imposing on the Native Americans? What did both poems tell us that the Europeans brought with them and were forcing upon the Native Americans? In the beginning of sickness, what do you think is meant by the last sentence? What will be revealed? And the last sentence is here. At the end of our loss of vision and of our shame, everything shall be revealed. What are they referring to? What could that mean? Finally, how does the Native Americans' view of Christianity differ from what their own religion or way of life is about? Think back to your notes on Native Americans, what you know about them. Put your answer here. Next is Chief Seattle's prayer. You're going to be reading Chief Seattle's prayer, or you can watch this video of them reading it to you. So when you click on this, you'll have access to it. As you're reading this, I want you to highlight 3 specific examples of how the poem reflects Native American culture and religious beliefs. You're going to highlight that in yellow. You will highlight 2 examples of personification in pink. You will highlight an example of a rhetorical question in green. Highlight an example of a metaphor in blue. Highlight 2 examples of imagery in orange and label what type of imagery it is in a comment box. So you have to insert comment and you'll put sight, taste, smell, touch, sound. And then finally, there is one question at the end that you will answer. So here's some background information on Chief Seattle. Noah Seattle was born about 1790 near Puget Sound, the northwest corner of the contiguous United States. He was chief of his tribe and of the alliance of tribes in his area. Faced with the incursion of white settlers, he chose peace rather than war and offered the settlers friendship and assistance. He became a Christian and then instituted in his tribe a practice of communal prayers morning and evening. A practice continued after his death. In 1855, being then around 65 years old, he signed a treaty ceding most of his tribe's ancestral lands to the settlers and moving his people north. On that occasion, he gave an eloquent and poignant speech in his native tongue on justice and on love and of respect for the land. Portions of the speech are often quoted by environmentalists, though the translations vary and some of them may have been embroidered. Chief Seattle's Prayer, 1855. Watch this video and you can hear him reading this to you. After listening to this poem and highlighting the correct literary devices, you will answer this question. How does this prayer encompass all that is different between the Europeans and the Native Americans? Give one example from the text to support your answer. Your answer must be 3 complete sentences. So make sure you have at least one example from the text. Put quotes around it so that we know it came from the text. And make sure you answer in at least 3 complete sentences. I also want to point out up here, if you're unsure of what personification, a rhetorical question, metaphor, or imagery are, please use the internet to look those up or your Quizlets from the review at the beginning of the school year.